The year is 501 AD. Toramana, the ruler of the Alkan Huns, now controls the region of western and central India, and he has conquered these territories in just 3 years. But there is still one big obstacle left for him, and this is the Ganga Valley. Ganga Valley presently is controlled by the Guptas, and it is also the core of the Gupta Empire. So because of this, there is always a threat to these Hunnic territories of a Gupta counterattack. The Guptas could also cut the access of the Huns to these conquered territories from their base in Punjab and Gandhar. So because of these threats, it is important for Toramana to conquer the Ganga Valley. And in this video, we will talk about how Toramana went on to conquer the Ganga Valley. This campaign of Toramana to conquer the Ganga Valley most likely started in Mathura. Mathura had been under the control of the Hunas from the beginning of Toramana's conquest. So it made sense that he should start his campaign in the Ganga Valley from Mathura. Now we do not know after crossing the Yamuna river whether the Hunas encountered any Gupta army or not. But what is clear is that when the Hunnic army entered the Ganga Yamuna Doab, their main target was the city of Kausambi. During this time, the city of Kausambi was an important political center for the Guptas, and I personally believe that it was also the administrative capital of the Gupta Empire. So perhaps because of this, Kausambi became the main target of the Hunas. Now we could argue that the Huns before reaching Kausambi did not fought any serious engagements. This was most likely because of the mobility of their forces. We already know that the Hunnic army was comprised largely of cavalry. So this meant that the Hunnic armies reached relatively quickly to Kausambi, and the defenders of this city did not have the time to shore up the defenses. Although we do not know how long the siege lasted, but what is clear is that the Huns were able to conquer this city, and from the archaeological records it appears that the Hunnic victory was followed by the destruction of the ancient city. In the excavation, we see that the levels belonging to the early 6th century show us that the city witnessed destruction on an unparalleled scale. The entire area was burnt down, and the buildings were almost razed to the ground. This type of destruction was the result of a violent assault on the city, and this attack shook the foundation of this ancient city. The kind of damage that was done can be seen from the fact that the defenses that had served the city for almost 1500 years were finally abandoned. The city never recovered from this attack, and these defenses were never repaired. From the same level, archaeologists have also discovered barbed arrow heads. These types of arrows make their appearance for the first time in large number, and most likely these arrows were the arrows of the Huna attackers. From these same levels, archaeologists have also discovered two important seals. These seals were found in a monastery that was situated in the city of Kausambi, and this monastery was called Ghoshita Ram. And we see that the contents of these two seals provide us the identity of the attackers. The first seal mentions the name Hunraj, whereas the second seal is the seal of the monastery of Ghoshitaram, and here we see that there are 4 letters that are restruck on this seal. These 4 letters are Toramana. This clearly refers to Toramana, and the act of restrucking the seal of the monastery with his name suggests that Toramana wanted to show that now he controls the ancient city and also this monastery. And from the first seal, which mentions the term Hunraj, it is quite clear that here Hunraj is none other than Toramana. So from these two important evidence, it is quite clear who the attackers were. These attackers were the Hunas, and they were led personally by Toramana. Now it appears that after conquering the ancient city of Kausambi and destroying it, the next target of the Huns was the city of Varanasi. In Manjushri Moolkalp, which is a Buddhist text, it is mentioned that a powerful king from the west had defeated the Gupta armies and he had conquered territories in the east up to the Ganga river. Now, after conquering these territories, this powerful king from the west installs a young Gupta prince on the Magadhan throne and then he returns to Kashi where he fell ill and died. According to historian K.P. Jaiswal, who has worked on Manjushri Moolkalp, this powerful king from west was none other than Toramana. Although we do not know whether this information that a Gupta prince was installed on the Magadhan throne by Toramana is true or not, but what is certain is that Kashi or Varanasi was under the control of the Hunas. So we can say this because firstly, Manjushri Moolkalp tells us that this powerful king from the west had conquered the territories in the east up to the river Ganga, and then it tells us that this powerful king from the west died in Kashi. So from these two evidence, it is quite clear that the city of Varanasi was under the control of this powerful king from the west. And if KP Jaiswal is correct, most likely Toramana had control over the city of Varanasi also. And it makes sense because Toramana or the Huns had already control of Kausambi. So most likely they went and conquered the city of Varanasi also. After conquering the city of Varanasi, it appears that Toramana did not venture further east. One reason behind this could be that an agreement had reached between Toramana and the Gupta ruler. The information about this agreement comes from Huensang's account. Huensang tells us that the Gupta ruler had refused to pay tribute to Mihir Kula. So from these lines of Huensang's, it is quite clear that earlier the Gupta rulers were paying tribute to the Hunas, and most likely this agreement to pay tribute reached when Toramana had conquered the city of Kausambi and Varanasi, and this was also the reason why Toramana did not venture further east. For Toramana, this was a good deal. He had control over Varanasi and Kausambi, and now there was also no threat of any Gupta counterattack. Plus, the Gupta ruler had agreed to pay tribute to him, which meant that now Toramana could claim that the Gupta ruler was under his protection. This provided him a certain form of legitimacy. The Gupta rulers of this time were in no way comparable to the Gupta rulers of the past, but the Gupta name still meant something. It provided legitimacy to other rulers. So by agreeing to keep the Gupta ruler under his protection, Toramana was basically trying to increase his status. We can think of the situation of these Gupta rulers as similar to the later Mughals. The later Mughals enjoyed a fraction of power which the great Mughals enjoyed, but they still carried the Mughal name. And this Mughal name provided legitimacy to the new powers that were emerging in 18th century India. Something similar was happening to the Gupta ruler who fought Toramana. Now here I should add that we are not sure who this Gupta ruler was. Huensang tells us that Mihir Kula fought Baladitya, and there are other scholars who argue that Baladitya was also the same Gupta ruler who fought Toramana. Baladitya was the title of Narsimhagupt. But there are other scholars who argue that Narsimhagupt did not belong to this period. This confusion is mostly because we know surprisingly very little about the Gupta rulers who were ruling at this time. The lack of resources also explains how bad the situation was with the Gupta Empire during this period. To say that the Gupta Empire was an empire in name only at this time would not be an exaggeration. Now coming back to Toraman, having conquered the city of Kausambi and Varanasi, he had now control over a significant chunk of the Indian subcontinent. He was also the most successful Alkan Hun ruler. But interestingly, when we analyze the coins of Toraman, we find that there is no mention of the term Alkan. The coins of Toraman are similar to the coins of other Alkan rulers. But here, the term Alkan is missing, and we see that the Tamga or the emblem of the Alkan Huns is also missing in Toraman's coins. The absence of the term Alkan and the Tamga suggest that Toraman was trying to hide his identity. Why he was doing so? Please watch this video when it will be uploaded to get an answer, and you can watch all the videos about the Huna invasion here in this playlist. Thank you for watching.